Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Andy Pavey, and I'm the program assistant with the CARES project at the National Community Action Partnership. And today I have the honor of introducing Melanie Lockwood Herman of the Nonprofit Risk Management Center for our seventh part of our resilience webinar series entitled Accessing Resilience Resources from Public and Private Sources. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And if I could get to the next slide, please. Before we begin all of our events, we like to recite the promise of community action together. Although all of you are muted, I encourage you to follow along at home. So let's go ahead and get into it. The promise of community action. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. Great, and with that, I'll turn it over to Melanie, and we'll get on with the show.
Thanks so much, Andy. It's my pleasure to be here to present this webinar, 7 in our series. As I always do, I've included my telephone number and my email address on this opening slide so that if you have a question for me and you want to put that outside of the parameters of this session, you're welcome to do that. We provide free tech assistance to community action agencies across the country. And it's always fun to hear from you. So do reach out to me by email or phone if you have questions about any of the resources I'm going to talk about, or if you have a risk question you want to talk about one-on-one. And just as a reminder, the Nonprofit Risk Management Center is a organization that helps other nonprofits as well as public agencies. And you see risk management in our title, and we focus on risk management. What we're really in business to do is to help leadership teams get comfortable taking risks. So our philosophy is that many organizations don't take enough risk. As the more you know about risk management, the more comfortable you become with risk management, the better able you are to actually take risks to advance your mission. So for today's session, I've divided the content into 3 sections. We're going to start with a quick overview of where we might begin to think about finding resources on resilience. You know, where do you go? What's a great way to get started? And then I want to take you, I'm calling it Resilience Resources Tour. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite websites that offer resources about resilience. One of the things you're going to notice is that many of these web pages that I'll be showing you are focused on COVID-19, because it's an area where so many organizations are currently focusing their attention and trying to build resilience. But keep in mind that these websites change frequently. And as other disruptive events, crisis events come to the forefront, these websites will update as well. So what you're seeing is just a screenshot taken either today or a few days ago. Those websites are going to be changing over time. So I'm pointing out these organizations not because of what you see on the screenshot, but because of all the terrific content that they feature. And then the final step in our journey today is what I'm calling final tips and takeaways. And in this final segment, I want to share a few thoughts from things that I've been reading. And I've just chosen a couple of books that I've read lately that inspired me, and I've chosen a couple of my favorite quotes from those books. I hope that these quotes will inspire you as well. I hope that you'll find them thought-provoking, and I hope they will help you start to think differently about resilience in your agency and start to think differently about your role as a leader in inspiring resilience, right? Not just in your organization, but in every member of your team. Resilience is something that we want to strive for as organizations, as leaders of organizations, but also as human beings, as individuals who will have to face some inevitable ups and downs, right? Some twists and turns in the journey of our lives or the journey of our organization's lives. So we need to be resilient. And many, many years ago, I read an article about differences between people who live very long lives and have longevity and those who don't. And one difference that scientists seem to be able to track somewhat is that in many cases, people who live to a ripe old age, right, into their 90s or older, are often people that are incredibly resilient. So resilience is good for you. It's good for you as an individual, and it's really good for you in terms of your organization. So let's start with where to begin. So as I think about where to begin, if I'm trying to find great resources on resilience or on any topic, frankly, where would I start? Well, the first place I would probably start is I would turn to organizations, people, experts that I know or that my organization has used in the past. And I would ask those experts for information. And one of the wonderful things, one of the many wonderful things about the internet is that so many organizations, websites full of resources, you don't have to necessarily be a customer of that organization in order to access those resources. So I think that's one of the wonderful things. You can access incredible library, this international worldwide library of resources. And there are many organizations posting information on their websites in order to educate the public, but also to kind of lure you in and hope that you'll one day become a client. So I want to start with professional advisors. We're going to start with CPA firms and law firms. And then I want to look at some federal and state agencies. And because the participants in this session, and of course, community action agencies are all over the country, I couldn't possibly do a tour of state websites in 50 states. So I picked a handful of states to just show you some of the resources, the types of resources that you can find. And then I also have a few membership associations and specialty organizations. So as you well know, there are many nonprofit organizations and associations that do nothing but develop content, develop resources for their members. But like advisor organizations, many membership organizations make some of the information they have available to the general public. So I want to show you a few of my favorite websites for membership associations and specialty organizations. So professional advisors, who am I talking about? Well, I certainly want you to be thinking about your insurance provider, right? And most of us who purchase commercial insurance, that would be insurance for the organizations we work for, right? If we purchase commercial insurance, we typically do so through an intermediary, and that intermediary is a professional agent or a broker. Those are go-to people for information on all sorts of risks. And the best agents and brokers, certainly those who specialize in nonprofits, know that they need to be a resource. They need to be someone you can go to with questions. And so check out your broker's website, check out your professional agent's website and see if they have resources posted. If not, give them a call and always question. Don't see that person as only a go-between as you renew your coverage, right? As you renew your property and casualty insurance every year and you fill out lots of forms. Make sure you're seeing that advisor as somebody that you can reach out to year-round with questions about risk, right? With questions about resilience, and turn to that person as a great advisor. Something else you may know is many insurance companies that specialize in nonprofits invested money in resources for their nonprofit policyholders. So on one hand, they want their policyholders to take steps to reduce the likelihood of a claim, of an insurable claim, but they show their policyholders a lot of love and support. They say, we believe in you, we support your mission, and in addition to selling you insurance, we want to give you information. And so I'm familiar with lots of these sites because my team has been involved in actually developing on resilience and risk for companies like Philadelphia insurance companies, Great American insurance companies, Cincinnati, lots and lots of companies out there that are focused on creating great risk resources. So give them a call and take advantage of resources. On the insurance company side, there's a good chance that if you're not a public holder, you won't be able to gain access to those resources, but you know, it's worth checking out the sites and seeing what are available at no charge to the general public. So two other sources of information that I found incredibly helpful over the years are law firms. And just like in the insurance industry, many law firms now specialize in nonprofits, and some of them only serve nonprofits, but others have a specialty practice. So there are a team of lawyers that do nothing but represent nonprofits and associations. And many of these companies realize we need to be content creators as well. They need to develop and deliver great content to reaffirm, if you will, their commitment to the nonprofit sector and the work that you do to mission-driven organizations. Many law firms now offer e-newsletters that you can sign up for, typically free of charge. One of my favorites is from the law firm Littler. I did not include a screenshot of this law firm, but they published a newsletter and it's frequent employment related issues. And so recently there's been lots and lots of vaccination policies. So I found everything they published to be really interesting and relevant, easy to digest. And I not only read their newsletter, but I often send it on to others in my network. And then lastly, when I think about professional advisory, think about your audit PA firm, or if you have an external accounting and finance firm, do they have a website resources, or do they know of someone who does? Who would they recommend you speak to about a particular issue? So don't be audit firms. I think they were a little bit slow to the party in terms of developing websites and content, but today I'm seeing lots and lots of audit and CPA websites that have great risk management website. So screen, what I've done is I've just chosen 4 law firms that nonprofits, specialize in nonprofits. Hemingway and Barnes is in the bottom left-hand corner. They're based in Boston and more of a regional firm, but the rest are pretty much national firms with large numbers or a large nonprofit specialty practice, meaning they have lawyers on their teams who only work in nonprofit organizations. So they have this extra special expertise and knowledge of issues that are pertinent to nonprofits and public agencies. So check these out when it's convenient to do so. Each of these law firms does have a newsletter and you can sign up. Some of them come out quite frequently and others are more sporadic. On this next page, I'm showing examples of CPA firms, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the firm on the left-hand side, maybe less with the right, but both offer lots of great resources that are relevant to community action. So I encourage you to check them out. And as you can see, the organization on the right side, their homepage currently focuses on COVID-19, but I promise you that will change over time. Will offer additional resources. And just because it says COVID-19 on the homepage doesn't mean that once you get inside, once you start to kind of poke around and look at the library, the content library, that you won't find lots of great resources on other topics as well. Another resource that I want you to keep in mind would be periodicals. And I'm a big reader, so I'm constantly reading. I'm reading books all the time, but I like to pick up various magazines. The magazines that I like have a bit of a business focus, but there's sometimes just an article or a piece that relates exactly to what I'm teaching in risk management, that relates to the topic of managing people, right, or being more resilient. And the Harvard Business Review is just consistently well done. It's such a well done publication with insightful articles. And this particular article was from late 2020, Building Organizational Resilience, a great piece, lots of helpful tips. With the Harvard Business Review, you can either subscribe, you can purchase a copy of it at a bookstore, a book stand, or you purchase articles online. So it is possible to purchase articles online. Just keep it, when you do purchase articles online, you're purchasing a license to that article, and it's not okay for you to put that article on your website or send it out to hundreds of people. If you want to share that article with 6 people, you have to purchase 6 licenses to use the article. So keep that in mind. You always want to honor and respect the copyrights of others. You don't want to be violating somebody's copyright. So in this particular HBR article, I loved the fact that they talked about 3 different ways to build resilience. And I thought these were really interesting. The first was you look at organizational routines, right? And they said that when certain work is predictable, organizational routines is a really helpful way to build resilience, right? Make it easy. It's a routine. I'm sure you have some routines. I have some routines. One of my routines is I make the coffee in the evening and I turn it on in the morning so it's ready to go. You know, we all have these little routines that we follow in our personal lives. And we also have routines at work, right? Certain things that happen on a cyclical basis or every Monday or once a week or at 5 o'clock in every day. So that's one way to build resilience, is to kind of in the mode or get in the habit of something over and over again. It's a great way to build resilience. It's hard to forget something that you're doing every single day or doing routinely. The second approach that they talk about in this terrific article is simple rules or heuristics. And heuristics are rules of thumb that help you speed up processes and decision making and prioritize the use of resources in less predictable contexts. So I was reading a book this morning, and the author was talking about heuristics being a tool that's very helpful for survival. And they developed when we were trying to survive, when we were hunter-gatherers, if you will. And the example was, most human beings know if they see a snake to back away, right? Not to go examine that snake up close and try to figure out, is this a poisonous snake or not a poisonous snake, right? So we've got this kind of built-in rule of thumb that says, if you see a snake, back away, right? This could hurt me, right? And we need those heuristics so that we're not stopping and having to do a formal analysis in the moment. And then the last one in this HBR article that I thought was interesting was this concept of improvisation. And as you well know, every organization has to do a bit of improvising from time to time, because at some point, our day, in our week, in our month, in our year, in our lifetime, in our career, we're going to encounter a situation we have never encountered before. And it may be that the routine doesn't work because this is brand new. It may be that the heuristic doesn't work because we don't have a rule of thumb. It's a rare event. So we have to do something spontaneous. We have to be creative in that moment. Some of you, I'm sure, are thinking, well, that's exactly what happened with COVID-19. We had never experienced that before. So sometimes we have to be spontaneous. Sometimes we have to be creative and just figure out when they happen. I was reading a piece yesterday about the fact when you have a first team, when you have a team of people who don't all look like you, who don't have the same set of life experiences, who come from different places, different perspectives on the world, you're likely to be more creative in the moment. You're likely to be better at that improvisation, right? But if you have a team of people that all have the same kind of view and come from the same place and look a lot alike, chances are you won't come up with all of the incredible creative solutions to problems that you might need in a period of stress or crisis. All right, let's turn our attention to topic number 2 for today's webinar, and that is my resilience resource tour. So I chose a photo of a canal in Italy. I thought this was an intriguing photo. It looks like the kind of journey I'd be taking in one of those little boats going down the canal and just exploring. And I thought of this segment as being kind of a way to explore with you. So we're going to look at some federal government websites and resources. We're going to look at some state websites and resources. And again, I think we chose 5 states to focus on today. And then we'll look at some nonprofit and association websites. For most of these, I've just chosen one screenshot to show you, so you're not getting the full picture. You're not getting the full tour of the website clearly, but what I'm hoping is that this will be enough to intrigue you, that you'll want to check out the web, bookmark these websites, and take some time to really explore them later on. So the first one is from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is also known as FEMA. And FEMA, over the years, after Katrina, was much maligned agency and not held in high regard. But since then, I think it's earned its reputation back, and the agency has really focused on developing resources, not just to deal with specific catastrophes, but to also help of public-private organizations around the country just prepare more for crisis events, for emergencies. One of the resources I love from the FEMA website is this fillable PowerPoint rather. Fillable PDFs are quite common. My team has developed quite a few over the years, but this was the first time I'd ever seen a fillable PowerPoint. So this is a PowerPoint deck that you can use. It's produced by a federal government agency. It's free of charge. There's no cost to use it. You can use it, but the best part is you can adapt it. You can fill in the blank and add your organization's information and use this slide deck to lead a tabletop exercise. Essentially, a tabletop exercise is where you sit at a table, you have multiple tables, so you may have virtual tables. You sit at a table and you flip through a scenario, right? You pretend that something has just happened. And the group at the table have to decide what next, and then what next, right? And they have to solve the problem. They have to deal with the crisis at hand, imagining that it's very real. Many people go through tabletop exercise say that it's incredibly helpful because them kind of imagine what would happen. And it also, probably most importantly, helps them identify stumbling blocks, where you might get help and where you would be answers that you need to take the next step. So check out those tabletop exercises in the form of a fillable PowerPoint from FEMA. You can find that really on the FEMA website. Well, a federal agency that's been in the news for the last 2 years and so much attention is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC. This is an agency that many of us were familiar with, and now it seems like the whole world knows about the CDC. There is a ton of information on the website, and I think they've done an amazing job of creating resources that are really easy to understand, that are visual in instances. You can see that that visual at the top in that left right-hand side banner. It says cases are rising, act now, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart, avoid crowds, right? So some simple messaging with infographics, with visual illustrations of techniques and things you need to know. And the website is really well organized and it's very authoritative. So whether it's COVID-19 or another health-related issue, I encourage you to check out the CDC website, and that site you've already bookmarked. Well, the U.S. Department of Labor website has always been one of my favorites, and its style seems to change every time there's a new occupant of the White House. So we've seen some stylistic changes. This is the look to the website. And when I took this screenshot, made the screenshot, the coronavirus was the home. That's what we're seeing here. But this website is just chock full of information about employment issues. And also, if you're trying to find your state's department website, you could find it through the U.S. Department of Labor. And so everything from family and medical leave, issue of information about unions. I mean, there's just a plethora of information on this website and lots that you can learn. And they publish a newsletter and you can subscribe to that, but just great information and a great search feature as well. So you can quickly find what you're looking for by using that search box. So this is ready.gov. This is a very, very helpful website, and it's been around for a number of years now. And it is on helping individuals, families, and businesses prepare for disasters and emergencies. And early on, when the site was developed, they put together pages on how to make a plan, right? An evacuation plan, a plan to deal with all sorts of disasters. And they also have a tab called Ready Kids. So they have resources for young people and information on how to work with children and helping them understand and get ready for a disaster without frightening them. So this website, lots has gone into it, and I think you'll find it very useful as you're trying to find additional resources on the topic of resilience. So this next website is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Emergency Preparedness and Response Operations. I have a hunch this may not be a website that you visit very often or that you've ever visited. It's not the most beautifully designed site, right? No effort or expense has been made to create a visually pleasing website, but the site has lots of information and it's really easy to navigate. So check out some of the information on this website. Here's another page from the website, from the cms.gov website. You can see there's a whole section about emergency preparedness and response options. Tons of information and great guidance. And again, it's not very beautiful. They didn't take a lot of money on graphic design or web design, but they've created it's chock full of information that I think would be helpful to your agency. This is the Department of Health and Human Services website. This has also been redesigned with a new occupant in the White House. So it's hhs.gov. Great information, quick links, resource pages. Again, nice, straightforward way. And it really just is easy to navigate. And you can find a wealth of information on this site as well. This is a federal site that you may have never visited, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I believe this is a sub-department of the Department of Homeland Security, but it's an agency that a lot of people don't know about. If you're worried about cybersecurity, if you're worried about the potential risk of your systems going down, of being hacked, cyber, so forth, there's some great information on this website. There's also great information about emergency communication strategies. Check out the CISA website. Make that a site that you bookmark and take some time to learn more about. All right, that's our tour of federal websites. I'm sure there are others that you visit and find helpful. So if there are, feel free to post those in the chat, share with everybody who's participating today and or listening to the recording. Now I want to show you some state websites and resources. And again, I've just picked a handful of states, and you can probably tell which state we're going to visit first by this opening slide. So New York State, obviously it's a populated state and with resources beyond that other states have. And so not surprisingly, they have quite a bit of resources on. It's related to resilience, related to reopening. And one of the things about New York State that I found interesting is when the state adopts a new law that says you have to do this, right? You have to do sexual harassment training, or you have to develop a reopening plan, right? They seem to always accompany that new regulation with a tool, right? So with sexual harassment, you can go to the New York State website and actually download PowerPoint presentations that you can use to train your team on sexual harassment. And great, because under state law, you're required to do that training if you have more than 10 employees. And so it's nice that the state has provided a tool that you can use. So I love that about the various state websites. And again, in a state like New York, there are many different websites. There isn't just one. All the various departments within state government have their own website. So this is from the New York State Department of Health, and it's their New York Forward Safety Plan template. And basically what the law requires is that businesses have a reopening plan, that they develop a reopening plan. And if you've been in New York in the last year or so, you've probably seen this document or like this hanging inside the door, right? So you walk into a restaurant and you see something like this hanging up and it's all filled in. So it's the reopening plan. So agencies aren't required to submit it to the state, but they have to retain it on their premises in the event that there's some sort of inspection. So that's a great resource. They also have a terrific website all about COVID-19, and that will change as the pandemic evolves and other health-related issues come to the forefront. So this is, again, New York State. Now, this is the New York State Health Foundation, so it's state-related, but it's not the Health and Human Services Department. And here's another site, and it's New York folks, but it's not the state of New York. It's not the government, called the New York Academy of Medicine. And again, it's a little bit of an offshoot, but some great resources, in particular on COVID-19. So now let's move across the country to Illinois and to show you this website. This is from the State Emergency Management Agency, the Illinois Emergency Agency. One of the reasons I was drawn to this website is that it shows the results of this contest, Wheaton Academy students annual contest. It's like a coloring contest, and you can see these safety messages and the designs that these kids came up with. They're really beautiful, really, really beautiful, but it just makes the site so appealing. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to share it with you. But you'll also, it's pretty darn specific. Right at the bottom, it talks about in exercises, local emergency management resources, nuclear and radiation safety. So great information, a beautiful website. You may not be based in Illinois, but there still may be some great tools and resources on this site that you want to take advantage of. And then there's also a Ready Illinois website, ready.illinois.gov. And we thought that was kind of interesting. This is a state government website. This site has a virtual assistant. You can see at the bottom right corner, when we were taking this screenshot, a little box popped up. Hi, I'm the virtual assistant. How can I help you? So if you're not comfortable using the search box, you can interact with the virtual assistants to try to find the info you want to find. And I also like how on this website, it's well organized. At the top, you see that in the navigation bar, plan and prepare, hazards after a disaster, and then some multimedia resources and for monthly preparedness. I really love the idea of breaking down resilience and preparedness into chunks or bite-sized pieces, or things that we can do kind of one at a time, rather than feeling overwhelmed by the need to be prepared. So now let's go back to the East Coast and go south to Florida, and let's look at floridadisaster.org. So this is the state's Division of Emergency Management site. And as you well know, there's quite a bit of dangerous weather that affects Florida each year. So as you would expect, you're seeing lots of information and images related to storms, right? Hurricanes and flooding and so forth. So this state has also done a nice job of creating resources that businesses and individuals can use to get ready, to be more resilient, to have something in place so that when that disaster strikes or that disruption strikes, you know what to do. And also from Florida is the Florida Health website, and not the most beautiful looking website, most modern website, but the most important thing is there information I can use. You know, one of the things I try not to do is be too mental when I see these websites that seem, or at least look like they were created in the 1990s. If the website has great information, then what does it matter that it's not the most beautiful design? And this one, I think, has some nice drop-down menus. It has a navigation bar that makes, and it's drawing our attention to some resources that all of us can learn from. Now we're going to go all the way back to the west, further west this time, to Oregon, and the Oregon Office of Emergency Management website. So again, this is an emergency management agency similar to the agency that we saw in Illinois. The structure of this website is very different. We don't see the coloring contest, but we do see these tiles on the bottom half that focus on hazards and preparedness, that left-hand side, then emergency management resources, then emergency operations, and then the state's 911 program. So I think this is pretty well organized, and it's broken things down. Lots and lots of hyperlinks. Everything you see in blue is a hyperlink, meaning you can click on it and get to more information on that topic. Now we're going to go south, and I think this is our final community we're visiting. We're actually looking at some resources from Los Angeles County. So we're in California, but we're specifically at a county level. So depending on where you are, your city may have great resources. Your state may have a great website or many websites. And of course, the federal government has many agencies as well. So there's just resources all over the place. And these government websites have free materials that you can use. And even though you may not be in a particular state, community where the website was created, the information may be incredibly helpful or relevant to you. So check these out. I love the fact that this government website focuses on the concept of community resilience, right? Resilience in communities. And lots of interesting resources. You can see on this page a resilience builder toolkit, a resilience work plan, and community resilience measures and a glossary and so forth. So check out these resources, free of charge, available from Los Angeles County. All right, let's take a turn and look at some nonprofit websites and resources. So we're moving away from the government resources and we're moving into the private sector, into the corner of the sector that I'm most familiar with, and that's the nonprofit sector. So if we're talking about resilience, by getting ready for things that may happen and be very disruptive to our missions, we've got to check out the American Red Cross. So this is a well-respected organization that's been around a long time and has helped Americans cope with all sorts of disasters and crisis events. So do check out the Red Cross website. As I think you're well aware, the Red Cross has many chapters all across the country. So I'm sure there's a chapter in your community, but the national website is just a great place to start. The Human Services Council is a nonprofit organization based in New York City that has been working on the topic for a number of years. And so they have an emergency plan template and an emergency communication systems for new nonprofits. Great resources on this website as well. Here's a website that you may not have heard of or ever accessed. It's the National Safety Council. So it's a national organization that is obsessed with safety. If you're looking for great resources about transportation safety, about office safety, about providing a safe work environment for your team, about safety related to workers, this is a great place to start. NSC is a large organization that has been producing practical resources, videos, articles, infographics, and even templates and sample policies and so forth for a long time. And so they're kind of an unsung hero in the world of safety. Many people don't know about this organization. And then they have just interesting, this one in the middle, I've actually checked this one out, which is this odds of dying calculator. So if you have a morbid sense of humor, you might be interested in that one. But some basic injury facts, a safety checkup, very accessible. The resources at NSC are just super accessible, easy to read, easy to understand. They stay away from jargon and they just kind of tell it like it is in a very straightforward way. And it offers so many resources that you can just start to use right away. You don't have to pay for them. You can also purchase things from them, but much of what they offer is available at no charge. Well, I couldn't do a tour of nonprofit websites without mentioning the Nonprofit Risk Management Center, which is the organization that I've had the honor of leading for the last 25 years. We are working every day to create new content to serve organizations and help them be more resilient, help them take risks, and to inspire resilience on leadership teams in nonprofit. And we've been working with community action agencies now for the last 15 years, and it's truly been an honor. And I've had an opportunity to go to many state conferences, to participate in some state conferences this last year, to attend the National Community Action Partnership annual convention. I've attended that many times, and I'm looking forward to attending yet another one in a week or so. So we're thinking about resilience, we're thinking about risk every day, and we're constantly writing and sharing what we're learning from what we're reading and what we're doing. So on this slide, I'm showing you just a snippet of one of our fillable PDF worksheets, which is called the Business Impact Analysis Worksheet. It helps you prioritize programs and services in your agency so that if you're seeing a disruption like COVID-19 or something else, you'll be able to decide in that moment very easily which services go offline, which services are going to continue, which services must absolutely continue no matter what, and maybe which services or programs you can kind of pull offline for a bit and pull back on as you deal with the emergency or deal with the interruption. So that's a business impact analysis process, and we show you how to do that with this worksheet. It's on our website, so just go to that far at nonprofitrisk.org and you'll be able to find that if you just type in the name, Business Impact Analysis Worksheet. And then we publish a newsletter 3 times per year, and each issue has a focus and really revolves around a single topic. So I'm showing you screenshots from the business continuity planning issue and also from the crisis management issue. We're working currently on an issue that's all about workplace culture. Some of you have heard the expression culture trumps strategy, or culture eats strategy for lunch, really, which means that no matter what you're planning to do, no matter what your high level strategy is, if your workplace culture isn't conducive to supporting that strategy, your strategy is potentially out the window because workplace culture will prevail. So having a strong and effective workplace culture is incredibly important and powerful. So that's the issue of risk essentially beyond currently. If you go to nonprofitrisk.org and you go to the resources tab in our navigation bar, you will see a whole list of resources, and one of them will be Risk Management Essentials, and that's the magazine that's in front of you right now. We also publish a newsletter we call the Risk ENews. It comes out almost weekly. Most weeks we're publishing an issue of this Risk ENews. Many community action leaders are subscribers, and so we thank you for that if you're already signed up to receive that. But during the last year or so, we focused so much time and attention on resilience, and so I hope you found some inspiration in those books that we published. Sign up for this at nonprofitrisk.org for resources. And if you mouse down to Risk ENews, you'll see a page with a sign-up form, but also hundreds and hundreds of past issues. Check them out, and I hope that you'll find some of them very helpful, and that you'll decide to share a few with individuals on your team or colleagues in other community action agencies that are trying to build resilience. All right, those are some tips and takeaways. So my first tip is from a terrific book by Adam Grant called Again. And some of you may have read some of his prior books. I loved this book. I think this is my favorite by Adam Grant. And one of the thoughts that really struck me is something that I'd heard years and years ago, but Adam describes it so beautifully, is this concept of the first instant fallacy. And if you think back to a time when you're taking a standardized test, maybe it was the SAT or the ACT, the PSAT or the LSAT, some sort of standardized test. Us were given a piece of advice when it came to changing our minds. And I remember vividly hearing from a teacher in my high school that the one thing I should remember when I take the SAT is that once I've chosen an answer, once I filled in the bubble, right, with my number 2 pencil, never change your answer. Stick with your original answer, with your gut, the first answer that you choose. At least 30 years after taking the SAT, I read something about this first instinct fallacy and learned that in study after study of test takers, the research shows that when somebody changes their mind on an answer to a test, an answer within a test, a question within a test, when we change our mind, more often than not, we change our answer from wrong to right. And I know for some of you, you're thinking, oh, man, I wish I could go back and take the SAT all over again. Now, most of us are not thinking that. That would be off the charts. But it turns out when we change our mind, we more often than not are changing our answer from wrong to right. And you can see this was validated study that Adam Grant references in Think Again. And basically what he's telling us is that in life, world of business, in the world of running an organization, when we change our mind, it's okay. And we're probably making a very good decision by changing our mind. I think there's been this philosophy or this thinking that's been almost inbred in leaders, that leaders are decisive, leaders don't change their mind, leaders stick with their initial commitments, that we don't backpedal, that we don't flip-flop, right? All of these terms are so negative, and they're telling us not to change our mind, when in reality, each of us needs to be willing to change our mind, to think again, to use Adam Grant's language. And to kind of on this and kind of further this thought, in Think Again, he also talks about the idea of convictions. The word conviction or convictions, it has a connotation, right? Somebody who has strong convictions. When I use the word convictions, or when I've used it in the past, I've always thought of those as strong beliefs, values, things I hold on to very tightly. But what Adam Grant says in Think Again is that we tend to favor the comfort of our convictions, that believing something deeply and being unwilling to entertain doubt is comforting. But he says in so many cases, new information comes to light. We learn something that suggests we ought to change our mind. We ought to do something differently. That prior deeply held conviction simply doesn't make sense anymore. And I think some of you are facing this with respect to vaccination policies. One of my clients yesterday, she was saying that her her organization has just decided on a vaccine mandate. They're going to require that all staff be vaccinated. Of course, individuals who come forth with a sincerely held religious belief or with some sort of medical condition that prevents their becoming vaccinated will be offered an accommodation. So they will be treated fairly and in a way that honors those issues that prevent them from getting vaccinated. However, she said to me, you know, when this was first discussed, I was against it. I was against a vaccine mandate. But she said two things have happened. First of all, the spread of the Delta variant and other variants emerging with COVID-19. So many large companies have started to mandate vaccines, as well as some government agencies. She said, now that those things have happened, I'm starting to think that the mandate is a really good idea. She said, I've completely changed my thinking about that. And I said to her, this is a great example of how you've allowed yourself a bit of doubt and you've been willing to kind of let go of your convictions with new information. So I just love that sentiment from Adam Grant, and I want to encourage you to think about that. In the book, in Faith Again, he talks about interviewing Ellen Ochoa, who is the former director of the Johnson Space Center at NASA. And in the interview with Ellen Ochoa, she tells him that the Space Center, she worked really hard to create this culture of learning where people are learning all the time, right? Where people are questioning their decisions, questioning what they know, questioning what they don't know. But she said, you know, at the Johnson Space Center, it was hard because she was basically working with rocket scientists who were pretty certain about what they knew and confident in their knowledge and their skills. And she said, these are people who pride themselves on their engineering expertise, and they don't like to be second guessed. And yet, if an engineer isn't second guessed, disaster can happen. And certainly NASA has had its share of disasters. So her technique was something that I thought was really interesting. I urge you to think about doing this in your own organization. Her technique was to create a list of questions that she would ask rocket scientists as she was walking around the agency. And her questions were, what leads you to that assumption? Why do you think that's correct? What might happen if it's wrong, right? Something along the lines of, what's the worst that can happen? What are the uncertainties in that analysis? What are the disadvantages of your recommendation? And she said by these questions on a 3x5 card, people would see her reach into her pocket and pull them out, and they would be prepared. And they would be starting to question, to have doubts about their own convictions, if you will. And she said it created this where nobody was defensive, where over time people started to welcome and expect these questions and start to ask these questions of one another. So I think this is a great tip from a rocket scientist, and I encourage you to give that some thought. This is an illustration which I recreated from Think Again, from Adam Grant's book, about how just visually showing that what we know is small in comparison to what we don't know. So it starts with this big circle of things I don't know, right? And then there's things I think I know, things I know, and then things I absolutely know I know, right? And I love these circles. And when people ask me sometimes, or say, you know a lot about risk management. You've been doing risk management for 25 years. You know a lot. My standard answer is, I know this much. I know this much. What I don't know about risk management is huge. And it would take me the rest of my life and beyond to truly be an expert. What I know is this much. But the most important thing is I'm working every single day to kind of grow what I know from this much to this much. But I have absolutely no expectation that by the end of my career, I will know it all. I will know most. I still believe very deeply that what I know about this discipline will always be very small in contrast with what I don't know. And so I encourage you to kind of think about your expertise in that way. So this is my final closing thought. This is something that came to me recently in reading another book called Essentialism by Greg McEwen. And he's written two books, and I really love them both, but Essentialism was the last one I read. And he talks about the fact that in organizations, in our personal lives, there's sometimes a tendency to focus on managing problems instead of solving problems, right? Doing what we need to do to get through the problem today instead of doing something longer to solve the problem indefinitely. And as I was reading this, something came to mind. It just popped into my head, and it was a conversation with my daughter, Jessie. So about a year ago, my daughter Jessie said to me, it was one of those days we were going there and I couldn't find my keys. And my daughter Jessie said, Mom, throughout my entire childhood, there were hundreds of times where you couldn't find your keys. It would, and she said, it always happened at the least convenient time. We were heading off to a dance class. We were late for school. We were meeting somebody. Said, you would lose your keys. You would be in a panic saying, Jessie, help me find my keys. And help you. You're looking for your keys. And she said, all of those times where you couldn't find your keys, what a waste, right? She said, why don't you buy a little hook that you put by your front door and you put your keys there every single day so that every morning when you're looking for your keys, they're right by the front door. And I thought to myself, wow, that's kind of smart. And I went online and I ordered a little hook to put by my front door. And I put the hook up 2 days later, and I haven't keys since, right? So I solved this problem in about 10 minutes. It took me less than 5 minutes to order the hook, and it took me less than 5 minutes to put the hook up. So in 10 minutes, I solved a problem that sadly I probably spent hundreds of hours trying to manage, right? Every time I was looking for my keys, that was 5 minutes of my life wasted. Based on my first calculation, that hundreds of incidents over 23 years, many, I hate to think how many hours I spent looking for my keys, but I've solved that problem. So that happens in organizations as well. We deal with a problem that comes up rather than looking for some sort of solution that will help us solve that problem so that we never face it again. So I hope those final thoughts have given you some food for thought and have got you thinking about not only where you can go to get help on resilience and understanding the risks you face and the potential disruptions facing your agency. I hope you're inspired to bookmark some of these websites, but I hope the books just talked about Essentialism by Greg McEwen and Thinking Grant are intriguing enough that you decide to pick them up and check out all the great advice in both pieces. So that's it from me. I'm going to turn it back over to Andy, and I think you have a few closing remarks, and I will advance to the next slide.
Great, thank you, Melanie. So yeah, we're promoting our leadership coaching and technical assistance services that are available to support you and your agency during your response and recovery from COVID-19. So yeah, that's there, and there's a link in the chat I see Denise has posted. We're also asking you to save the date and sign up for the final entry in this series with Melanie, How to Become the Resilience Leader Your Mission Requires. And that is on September 16th, 2021 at 2 Eastern. So please sign up for that. And for more information, please contact our team. There are email addresses there. And also I see in the chat, Denise has posted a link to our SurveyMonkey. So complete that survey. We really want to hear from you and learn what we can do better next time. And thank you from everyone at the partnership, and have a great day, everybody.